Many Central Asian analysts, both there in the region and here as well in Washington, say that it's the U.S. security establishment that pretty much dictates the policy or real interactions or real progress with the region in Central Asia, and that even the Biden administration, with all this focus on human rights and political reforms and democracy and transparency, may sacrifice certain values to really achieve something in terms of counterterrorism. How important for you is the promotion of human rights and democracy in the region now? We see what's happening in Tajikistan, and the State Department hasn't really said much about what's happening there. Casualties.
We have said very clearly what our
What is your
concerns
position on it?
about what's happening in Nagorno-Karabakh. We're very concerned about what has been happening there. We're concerned that civil society is being swept up in this effort to contain anti-government forces. We're concerned that media freedom is being limited there. At the same time, when I was in Dushanbe just a few weeks ago, we talked seriously about the threats that Tajikistan faces. It faces real threats from the border, from the south in Afghanistan, and then threats of anti-government forces. What we have said publicly and privately, though, is that there needs to be a distinction between those who should be captured and prosecuted for anti-government violent activity and those who are legitimate civil society, free media. Those people should not be swept up in the same operations. There is a distinction between the two. Let me also add, as you raise the broader question of human rights, we have actually seen some pretty spectacular movement in recent years. Let me take the example of forced labor in Uzbekistan with the cotton harvest. None of us would have believed that since 2016, the Mirziyoyev government could have stamped out 100% of the forced labor happening in Uzbekistan. And we just saw the cotton campaign has reversed its boycott of Uzbek cotton because everyone now can see the progress being made. I also look at Kazakhstan. We had a terrible set of violent activities that happened in January, and that more recently you have seen some real progress towards strengthening of the parliament, reducing the powers of the president, strengthening the human rights ombudsman, and providing more legitimacy for the independent judiciary. Those are all things that we stand for as well.
So you see them as genuine actions, as genuine steps by the governments, because we have now President Tokayev promoting New Kazakhstan, and President Mirziyoyev in Uzbekistan has been promoting New Uzbekistan for a while, and the State Department, during the Trump administration, constantly said that they see President Mirziyoyev as a reform-minded person, and now there's a discussion of constitutional reforms in Uzbekistan as well. So you have these two big countries in Central Asia claiming to be carrying out multi-dimensional reforms. But many doubt that they're genuine. In Uzbekistan, if the presidential term now gets extended from 5 to 7 years, and with the new constitution, President Mirziyoyev's previous 2 terms will get nullified, which will then qualify him or put him in a really good position to stay in power all the way until 2040. And we don't know what's going to happen in Kazakhstan. My question to you is, how concerned are you, I guess, with this very relative change or relative democratic trajectory that these countries have been on? There is a lot of criticism of current developments there within the region, especially on social media. You have any concerns?
So I think the way we frame it is we support the reform agenda. So the things that are publicly announced that they want to do, we absolutely support that. The truth will be shown to the people of this region based on the actions taken by their government. So in the case of Kazakhstan, we have said when we visited there last month, but we continue to say, it's so important for us to see as an international community, but also on behalf of all the Kazakh people as well, to see real accountability for the violence in January. That accountability must be on behalf of those who participated in these violent actions. They must be held accountable. But so must the security services that very clearly also participated in human rights abuses during that period. Included in that should be either the release or the prosecution of those remaining people that are being held since January. There has to be a fair and transparent process of accountability in the court system for people to see this as a true step forward. In the case of Uzbekistan, there are many places that the Uzbek government itself knows that it can improve its progress. The places that we highlight: registration of civil society organizations, registration of religious organizations. We have constantly tried to have a dialogue about the criminalization of homosexuality there. These are very fundamental, sensitive issues in society. We would love to see progress forward.
There is a huge resistance against the promotion of LGBT rights.
Well, it's a different thing to say you don't want to promote LGBT rights, you don't want to promote LGBT values, but to say that the criminalization of homosexuality occurs in only two countries in the OSCE, in Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan. Actually, all the rest of Europe has rejected that. I would love to see progress on those issues.
What do you hear back when you raise this issue in Tashkent?
You know, what I love to see, having worked on this region for almost 30 years, is there is real progress, in my opinion. It's hard to see that every day because that progress occurs slowly, but we do see progress on this issue. When I was ambassador in Kyrgyzstan, I went to some really amazing meetings of civil society to talk about LGBT issues. And they talked openly in hotels, in public meetings. Ministry officials came to talk about the health implications for transgender people. This could never have been done 30 years ago. We see progress. It's slow, but I think mentality is changing, people's views are changing. Eventually governments will change as well.
Your strategic partners in the region are still authoritarians. What should happen for them to move from that position to, I guess, towards where you would like them to see?
We are all on a spectrum of democracy, right? No democracy, including...
Well, President Mirziyoyev recently said that we're all students of democracy.
Well, he's not wrong. Even the United States, we haven't perfected our democracy. We have lots of flaws. It is true that in Central Asia, countries are in various places on this spectrum. We recognize that. Democracy is not easy. These countries are only 30 years old. They cannot be expected to have all the same trappings of very old democracies. They're going to have a form of democracy that suits their country. And we want to be a supportive, good partner that helps to spread the values of Central Asian people. Not my values, not the values of foreigners, but values that are really intrinsic to this region. I believe Central Asians are at their core Democrats.
So there is a lot of cynicism in the region towards America, and here is why. People see what happened in Afghanistan. They see America failing at whatever mission it had in that country. They see what's happening in Ukraine, and many blame, and thanks to the Russian propaganda as well, many blame US and its allies and this global coalition it has built so far for bringing Ukraine to that sort of state. And they say, okay, even if we are critical of Russia, who will protect us, who will defend us if, let's say, there is danger from anywhere for us? Why should we rely on the United States? So your brief answer to this question, why should Central Asians trust and rely on the United States?
So I'm trying to remember who said this very famous quote, but one of the great things about the United States, if you live in Central Asia, is we are not close. We are very far away.
Distance!
If you're thinking about Moscow, or Beijing, or even Ankara, it feels much closer. They have interests in Central Asia that are very focused on their bilateral needs. You know, you think of the Chinese and all the Chinese investment there, or Chinese citizens on the ground. Actually, we're very far away. And so we have the luxury in Central Asia to be guided by principles. And you can see that very clearly in our Central Asia strategy. What is it that we are trying to do? We're trying to support independence and sovereignty. And those are big, vague terms that are hard, I think, for normal people to wrap their minds around.
Well, more relevant than ever now.
More relevant after the invasion of Ukraine. That today, as I travel in Central Asia, I can see people are a little concerned about whether their countries will survive into the next few decades. That economically or politically, will they be able to remain sovereign and independent states? We stand for their sovereignty. We believe that these are countries that should exist forever. as countries, as people, and we look to invest in the sovereignty and independence of Central Asia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me
Wonderful talking to
today.
you.